Hi there, everybody. I'm Fred Thomas, and you are watching All Things Bike, brought to you by Zentis Wheels, AD Bikes, and Frame and Wheel. And today, we are speaking with cycling photographer Angelica Dixon.
Hello, Fred.
Angelica, good to see you.
Thanks for having me.
Can we really call you a photographer? I mean, today's cameras are totally different from...
I know, everyone can be a photographer now.
I know.
I'm considered a photographer, and it took me a really long time to allow myself to be called a professional photographer, but as far as it's been explained to me, if you've been paid for it, you've been published, then you can identify yourself as
photographer.
Being a photographer.
Well, you're very good at it, and you've raised everyone's cycling profile in New England anyway, and you've made them look faster and stronger and more beautiful than they really are, and we're all very grateful. And I did not realize how many big races you had covered and how long you had been doing it. I mean, how did you get started?
Well, I mean, I've always liked photography since I was a kid. I had a fourth grade teacher who introduced us to taking black and white photography and putzing around in a dark room.
Oh, wow. So, yeah.
But it really wasn't until I had kids, and then I just started playing around with my own, off-the-shelf camera. And when I met my husband, who's a cyclist and a racer, amateur racer, he introduced me to the whole sport itself. I myself didn't ride bikes at the time.
The culture, the way of life.
It really is. And if you're not in it, you have no idea what a community it can be.
Right.
So he'd kind of been out of racing for a little bit, and when we started hanging out more, I actually watched him make the decision to race again. I watched him train. I watched him go to small local races. I watched him make a huge decision to go to the Tour of the Gila in New Mexico, which is
it's a big one.
It's enormous. It's the only amateur 5-day stage race with thousands of feet of climbing. And even him telling me that and looking at a topo map, I really had no idea how big this event was. So I took my camera, and I absolutely love black and white photography, and I was just putzing around, and it was just amazing how a cyclist looked in black and white. Full-time, I'm a physical therapist, and there's always kind of the inside joke and comment from therapists that you really never turn off your analyzing PTIs. You're always watching how people move. You're always watching what the human body can do. Even when you've clocked out for the day. And so going to a bike race at that level and seeing amateurs and pros and knowing what work went into it and driving around the terrain and just seeing the magnitude of this event, I fell in love with it instantly.
Drawn right in.
And so I started watching the professional photographers and getting to see all the places they could go that I couldn't go because they had press badges. So the following year, I contacted Cycling Tips and Paved Magazine, and asked them if they were interested in some coverage from the race. And Paved Magazine was really just taking, shots voluntarily from people who wanted to submit it, but Cycling Tips was interested in really getting some coverage. So I got my assignment letter and a press badge, and jumped in a media car shortly after that and got to photograph the race from the field.
Which is totally different from standing by the barriers or at the start and the finish.
It is. But then in a media car,
you're in the back.
Actually, they made us stay hundreds of feet, and because I was new person to the scene, I was in a media car that had to be hundreds of feet in front of a peloton, and we technically weren't allowed to stick our cameras out of the windows. There were all these rules and restrictions to being a photographer. It really was a media car for journalists, not photographers. So I watched this photographer jump in and out of the car as she was changing positions on a photo moto with another photographer, and I just picked their brains on how do you get on that? How do you get on a moto?
Exactly.
So the following year after that, I had donated a bunch of photos to the Tour of the Gila to help promote the race. They were really struggling with the funds to make sure that race happened, and by donating the photos that I took the prior year, they were able to save that expense. So I was able to then get another assignment letter.
They invited you back, right?
Yep, Pez Cycling News, Cycling Illustrated, and Cycling Tips, and jumped onto a moto that year.
Wow.
So from there, it was kind of more just proving myself and showing other publications that I could meet the production requirements of taking a photo that matched their media needs, but in a timely fashion. So
right. And I mean, and is that a function of the gear, the machine, or the technology that you use, or do you feel it was your physical therapy experience, or just being around races? I mean, every one of your images are really capture the drama and the spirit of racing bikes. And I mean, how do you explain?
Well, taking the images itself, I think being a therapist helps, because you may pay attention maybe a little bit differently to what the body is doing in a certain position at a certain time in the race. I think anyone, though, who watches a race knows that taking a turn at a certain speed in a road race is very different from a crit, or if there's a descent down a mountain. If you watch it enough, you can kind of anticipate what the body would do on a bike, and you want to take the shots that are most challenging. You don't want to get the shots where it's a straightaway for 10 miles to the next, obstacle. Right. So purposely hunting down those. Yeah,
that's your eye at work. Yes. Because you can make an image of a guy riding his bike look pretty standard, I imagine. But your shots have the perspective, I guess, and
try to capture motion. Or detail. I think starting in black and white photography. I like black and white photography because it gets rid of all the noise.
That's right.
So you're not distracted by the loud kits or the kits that have all the logos, the bright colors. And in black and white, you see muscle, and you see body angle, and you see their body's relationship to the bike itself. And so after a while, I just started looking for those positions in the race.
Fantastic.
Wasn't always in the place of the race where the action was happening, but that's not really what I was looking for to begin with. So,
what are the challenges of getting yourself to the right place at the right time? I mean, you have to be suited up properly, got the right cameras.
Right. Yeah. Definitely knowing the course. If it's out west, there were a lot of races out on highways where there was a rolling enclosure. So I'd usually look up the road course ahead of time, or I'd contact the individuals that were putting on the race and get the race Bible. Right. And I'd usually study all the routes to figure out where I could shortcut. Then there were some races that we'd go to that were closed, and I would hop on my bike and ride the course backwards as they would lap and take shot. I would just strap cameras to my body. In fact, one of my absolute favorite photographers, Jared Gruber, I emailed him and was really surprised to get a response within a couple hours, actually, on how he carried cameras while on a bike, because a lot of his photos that aren't a part of a race, he's on a bike himself to get to either the location, or he's shooting while he's on his bike.
Wow.
So he responded and explained how he strapped the gear to his body, and anyway, so just knowing the course and knowing where it's going to be challenging,
and some experience and tips from others. Then, so what about being on a moto? That takes you got to be comfortable on a motorbike, and you're on it for what, 5 hours sometimes, or?
Yeah, the first time I was on a motorcycle, it was just a local race, and I had a friend who had a motorcycle, and the race was going to go up into the mountains, up to a ski basin, a ski area, and there was no way to get a car around the group. So he offered to let me be on the back of his bike. He knew how to carry someone, which was
that's important,
right?
Yeah.
Very important. But he knew how to carry someone who stayed perfectly still on the bike and only moved with him. And not that I was, jumping into daredevil photography or anything like that, but I learned how to ride on the back of his bike.
You have to anticipate the corners a little bit too.
Yeah, and then my first moto that I jumped on at the Tour of the Gila, he was a gentleman from LA, and was the first time he'd graduated from an academy that accredited him to be a moto photographer, moto for photographers. And so he taught me a little bit more and about the gear, and I had to get a helmet and, you know, the right clothing to wear. But yeah, you really don't plan out your day the first time, like what lenses you might need, you know, water, snacks, you know, just, you don't think of all that until you meet someone who rides motorcycles and they kind of fill you in. So by the time I got to Tour of California, I knew how to ride on the back. I could ride on the back without holding on to anything, just using my legs for support and balance. And I could do, you know, complete turns and hang off the side of the bike and shoot. And
picture the derailleurs and all that. Look at those gears.
Or how to stay calm when the peloton just like swoops on around you and you have to wait for them to open back up so the bike can speed through. And
yeah, I mean, talk about that. I mean, how do you negotiate the peloton, and how do you not distract the riders? Because sometimes you know, these guys you're in the way. I mean, how does tell us some stories about that?
Well, first off, like the motos follow a code of conduct just like any of the other vehicles in a race, and so they usually have to ask an official if they can pass from the back of the peloton to the front, and depending on what's happening in the peloton or the group or how it's breaking up or merging, they may or may not let you go by. And then once they do, you have to maintain a certain distance, certain speed, you know, so that there isn't any potential for clashing of bike and motorcycle, or for a cyclist to take advantage of a draft from a motorcycle. And then sometimes, depending on what the road is doing, sometimes the bike just doesn't have enough time to get past the peloton. And Tour of California, often that would happen on some of the windy, hilly roads, and the peloton would end up kind of surrounding us for a while as they would tuck in closer to go on descents and turns. And then as they open up, before you realize it, all of a sudden they realize there's a moto in the middle of their group. And there was one stage at the Tour of California where there were 4 racers around me, and I was taking shots. I mean, they're literally probably like that close. And I'm taking shots with a wide angle where I'm cracking up, they're cracking up, because it is so obvious we're so close and there's no way to get out. And finally some guy, maybe 3 riders back, just mad that we were holding it, because these guys are goofing around instead of racing. They're chatting with the photographer, and he had to get them in gear and get them going. And, but
so I mean, you know some of these guys, is that right? I mean, did you ever sort of snap a picture and then look up and find that it was Mark Cavendish or Bradley Wiggins or?
Yeah, Wiggins was probably one of the first ones where we were passing a peloton and we were allowed to keep a slow pace, just slightly faster than the group, and all of a sudden I'm inches away from Bradley Wiggins. And it was the first stage I had jumped onto at Tour of California. It was 102. We were going through Wine Valley. I mean, everyone's dying. The media, the motos, the cyclists are just having one heck of a day. And so I got this great capture of him. He's unzipping his jersey. He's so uncomfortable. He looks just miserable, and that was exactly the shot I wanted. I didn't want to take a shot of him looking perfect in his I wanted to show that struggle. You know, he's in the elements. He's racing. He's in that heat.
Yeah, no, it's a great shot, and we'll see it in a moment. But I mean, what are the cyclists like? These are all professional cyclists, and you're with them in the race, and then you're presumably you're around them at the beginning and at the podium. What are they like?
They're extremely professional, but yet they're silly and they're human, and despite the fact that they're in their own teams, they're like one giant family, and all their support staff is part of that family. And so the pre-race scene is just one big reunion. And gathering, and fans are lining up to get signatures, and they absolutely respect the support from the fans that they get. And yeah, they're able to have humor and enjoy the day, and you can just tell at the end of the day, and then in the following stage, that they just absolutely love what they do. They love everything that goes into it. They definitely do their due diligence and support the media to document those events. But they do it in such a way that just makes it really, really fun for everyone. So it's just a continuum of a cycling community.
Yeah.
Just on a
that's
bigger
right.
level.
It's exactly. It sounds very familiar.
Yep.
And I mean, do they ask you for images afterwards, and they say, hey, can you send me a picture, or they get a hold of it somehow, or?
Sometimes teams will approach photographers and ask them, for rights to the images.
Okay.
There's been cases where it's not necessarily, the big Sky team, but maybe it's a Continental team that's just starting up. And
right.
I've donated photos to some of those teams just for the cause of helping them promote and get started, because it wasn't in their budget to be able to pay for, expensive files. And then there's other times when they just, they clearly just appreciate the documenting that goes into magazines and on websites, and they know that we're there to do a job, and they help support us doing that.
Yeah, well, but you've done the same thing for the local races. Maybe explain some of the races around New England that you've covered and the experiences there. Yeah.
Well, the first batch of races I ever experienced was actually before we moved out here. We were visiting family, and I went to the Grand Prix of Gloucester.
Oh, yeah. Cyclocross, yeah, right.
I'd never seen cyclocross before, and it was.
What are these guys doing? I think they look like they've stolen bikes, and they're all running around with them.
On all terrain.
Yeah, right.
And mounting and dismounting and hurdles and all. Yeah. I'd never seen anything like that.
But it's great. It's the exact opposite of covering the Tour of California, because it's confined and
it's a spectator sport. And so now the culture of cycling has just been taken to another level. So I walk up to this park, and there are fans lining almost every inch of fence. Right. Tons, racers everywhere, amateur and pro. The terrain, and it's part of New England's Holy Week in cross.
Right,
so it's just one of the key races that is identified in that sport.
In the series, yeah, and so everyone is there.
Yeah, everyone who is probably going to do something big in cyclocross in the U.S. is going to be there. Yeah. So that was my first exposure to a New England cross race. And I was hoping for rain and mud, but it ended up being a bright sunny day. But the bikes were kicking up dust, and we got great silhouette shots, and just, again, cyclists in their element and making do with what terrain they had. And then the road racing is probably what I'm just now starting to get back into. Crits are really popular out here in New England, really not quite as big out west. So that was another new experience, to photograph a crit and be brave enough to be in the right place to take the shots I wanted.
You were very brave on Sunday. You're right down there in the corner. This is the Scarborough Crit Series, right? So, I can tell that you're getting more and more confident. You're right there. If anyone's going to fall off their bike, it's going to be right at that corner. But there you are, capturing it, and I think everybody knows you're there. So no one's doing anything too dramatic. But the results are fantastic.
Yeah, you definitely have to have a strategy as a photographer to get into some of those positions without causing some situation for the riders. And I started doing that even at the Tour of the Gila. There's a sharp turn. As a photographer, you don't want to surprise them. You don't want to be flashing light in their eyes all of a sudden and then causing a crash. So
yeah, that's true.
Like at Scarborough on Sunday, I started in the parking lot and just stood, so I was an obvious object. And then the next lap the guys went around, I got a little closer. Next lap I went around, I'm squatting alongside the road, and then the next lap I'm laying on my side, shooting up right on the white line. So
it's like wildlife photography almost, right? The patience of stalking the prey.
Right.
But easier than photographing children, I think. Right?
Yeah, it is.
Or,
a little easier to anticipate.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Well, let's talk about some of your favorite shots, and then we can you can tell us how they came to be. And I just put that one there.
Sure.
I was sort of wondering what that book was all about.
Actually, no, it's perfect. So when I wanted to get into higher levels of cycling photography, which is incredibly competitive. I had no idea what I was getting into, or the tough skin that you would have to do that. But one of the big things to go beyond providing a publishing company or a website, a gallery of photos, was they need words with those photos.
Yeah.
And so, still being new to cycling,
Comments, yeah.
I could explain my photo, but I couldn't explain it the way a racer would be on that website, wanting to know what was happening in that scene.
Right.
So,
dropped here, the vernacular. He was hammering, but he still got dropped. Is that
exactly?
Yeah.
Like what happened prior to that photo, and where did that that scene end up? Down the
that's
ride.
right. Some context, right? So
Exactly.
Sky just launched their attack, and here is someone suffering. So this is
that's
comment
a
book.
photo of my husband Travis. He very nicely wrote several articles for me to go with my photos so that I could submit them as a whole piece.
Wonderful.
So we ended up teaming up together and did articles together for Cycling Tips and Cycling Illustrated when they first started. We actually contributed to their first pilot magazine.
Really? Wonderful.
And we both wrote articles and photographs in that. And then did the same thing for Pez.
Yeah.
So
these are established publications.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
So this is.
So that is that's the Pro Challenge.
fans.
Yep, the U.S. Pro Challenge, and all the motos were reserved for more established photographers, and so I did a lot of photography from the side of the road at this race, but it couldn't have been more perfect because Pro Challenge is so...
It's very steep. It's all climbing pretty much.
It is
right?
a lot of climbing, and the fans get into that race like none other I've seen in the U.S. So this was just a giant street party that went up the hill. Everyone's in costume. There's a DJ. I'm pretty sure most everyone had a good beer in their hand.
Yeah.
And so this is just an example of the scene. But I love this photo because the runner is pushing a rider who's pushing another rider. And these riders, I mean, it's clear here, but they just spent hours in the saddle, just dumped on all day long. And they finally get to one of the last hills, and they come on to this street party, and everyone's getting a push up the road. It was great.
God, it must have been so much fun.
Yeah, it was.
The woman's shouting with excitement. All right, this is one of the images you were talking about, getting the right angle, right? On
that is the photo that started it all for me. I had taken, it was on turn 4 at the crit stage at Tour of the Gila, and I wanted to get down and get a close shot. I had just purchased a wide angle lens and really didn't know how to use it, and Travis had suggested I get closer. So you can't see it, but there is a stop sign right over here. And so I did my thing, stood, let the riders know that I was there, squatted down. And then finally, to get right up to the curb, if this was the curb, I had my camera right on the curb. So I'm hiding behind the signpost thinking that if a racer hits me, they're going to hit the post first.
Yeah, that's okay.
Which is fine, they'll bounce. No.
But that's...
So I'm holding on to that. I have got my hand out there completely on the curb, hoping that it's just an absolute accidental shot. But what was great was I didn't use a flash. I didn't know how to use flash photography. But at that time of the day, when the pros go onto the crit, the sun bounces off the back of the stop sign and shines right in their face. So you get all this fill flash, this natural fill flash.
Sure enough, off the metallic backside of the stop sign. So that's what's creating this halo effect around the guy's head.
Yeah, so that was the first photo.
That's fantastic.
I looked at, I want to submit that, I want to do something with it. So I had contacted Pave Magazine, and that was an amazing publication. It was about the beauty and the culture of cycling, and they took lots of submissions from amateur photographers, and they loved it and they wanted to publish it. It was going to be on 2 pages, and then they asked me, so you sent us the JPEG, can you send us the RAW file, the DNG file? I had no idea what they were talking about.
Oops, yeah.
It was a foreign language, and the editor, Anthony Smith, was so nice and so patient. Over a series of emails, he explained to me the RAW file would let us see what you did to the photo, and I said, well, that's the photo, it's a JPEG, I'm really sorry.
Well, that's great.
And he said, nope, no worries. We'll beautify it and publish it. And then he said, by the way, you should probably use Lightroom. That's what most of the photographers use. So he actually taught me so many things about.
That's right. Well, because he
editing.
He knows that he had found someone who really knows how to take great pictures, and you're valuable. And there are probably not that many people who are able to do it. Or maybe they were, but they just didn't turn up and create an image like that. So that's a great picture. So I hope that's framed in the living room.
It's not framed. It is up, and I sent a copy to that writer.
Oh, good. Yeah.
He lived out west at the time, and just thanked him for being in the right place at the right time. And here is your magazine and your photo.
Wonderful. Now this is a shot you were talking about.
Yeah, that's Wiggins. So again, I'm inches away from him, and he just probably does not want to have his photo taken, but it was so hot. Again, it was 102. I mean,
it's hot, yeah.
We have the highway patrol, helping man the race, and they're handing us people on the motos licorice and water, just to keep from fainting. And I don't know how these cyclists are amazing. Yeah. But yeah, we're towards the tail end of the race, and you can just see he's feeling the.
He's human, after all.
Yeah.
He gets tired.
Yeah,
Amazing.
exactly.
And even his teammates looking pretty tired too.
Yeah, they were working on the front all day long.
Wow.
So, and it was a good 6 hours.
But
I mean,
these are long stages.
Long stages.
Pasadena to wherever.
Yeah, they were
through the mountains.
They were epic. Yeah.
Wow, beautiful. That looks familiar.
Yeah. So that is in one of my new favorite places to photograph in Boston. I absolutely love the city of Boston, and when I was out west, I always drooled about the idea of living in New England someday, and how many times I would go to Boston and all the things I would do.
Dreams do come true.
Right, and so then one day I heard the Mayor's Cup is in Boston, and they shut down Market
Center.
Square.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I know.
I could not believe what I was hearing. So we've gone twice now. But yeah, just my absolute favorite place to take pictures. Cyclists in the middle of a busy downtown urban area.
Right, with a nice background. I mean,
Yeah, you can't see it in this photo, but if there are certain categories, if they race at the right time of day, the sunlight angles in and bounces off all the windows in the buildings,
yeah, right.
And it just lights these guys up.
Wow.
I didn't put it in this catalog, but it's a great race to photograph.
I know. And Travis was in it too, wasn't he?
Yep. That's in
that?
Portsmouth, another New England crit race.
Oh, right.
And I love photographing urban areas. I love photographing culture and scenery.
The bakery.
And it was just great. We've got the cafe right behind them. They're just drinking coffee, watching a race go by. These guys are just busting their butts. And
yeah, but it's black and white, as you were describing, so we can really see. I think this is Brendan Rim or Ansel Dickey for the Giant Foods team. This is from a couple of years ago, but you can look at the way his leg is the same angle as the down tube, and then his thigh is going in the other direction, and his back, he almost looks like a reverse question mark.
But exactly, the black and white and eliminating the color.
Yeah.
Everyone likes color photos, but there's something about black and white that just hones you into a detail and makes you just see it differently.
It look like the vines are being blown by wind from the passing peloton.
That's right.
This is one of my favorites too.
Yeah, that's Jeremy Powers going right by the beer tent.
Yeah, exactly.
And at a cross race during Holy Week, and the crowds period at cross races are one thing, but going by the beer tent is a whole nother thing.
It's the Belgian spirit of just drinking beer and watching guys ride bikes in the mud, right? And this guy's got a loudspeaker. Hurry up!
Yeah. So
Jeremy.
I just love it because Jeremy's in focus and the loudspeaker guy is in focus, and everyone else is just a chaotic blur of screaming fans that are really excited to see this guy hustle through that area. And it's a really hilly, windy area, but it was an overcast day, and so for whatever reason, right in that spot, the sunlight was filtering through a thinner cloud, and it just lit up this area like just this beautiful filter. Where everything else on the course was really dark and So it was just a great place to shoot.
Yeah, it worked out, and I love all the faces. I mean, you can spend a lot of time looking at the expressions of all the people in the background.
Yep. That's Mulholland Drive in California.
Yeah.
So, I mean, people drive from all over to race their cars and their motorcycles.
Oh, yeah.
And there are photography businesses that you can hire to just photograph you riding your motorcycle down Mulholland Drive. And so at the Tour of California, they do it a little bit differently. Like at the Tour of the Gila, it's budgeted within their budget to have a certain number of motos devoted to media and photographers, and that's inclusive in the race. And a lot of other stage races in the US, I believe, are like that. But Tour of California didn't have it in their budget and actually preferred to have the photographers pay their way onto the bike, which didn't go over well with some photographers. And then it allowed for an opportunity for those of us who might not be able to get on a bike because we're so new to the scene to get on a bike. So the Mulholland Drive was one of the days I got to be on a moto with Tom Filkins. He was my moto driver, and for about 5 days.
Oh, wonderful.
And it was just the most amazing piece of road through these mountains in California. And the fascinating part, I had no idea how fast cyclists really can descend a mountain.
Yeah.
And so the first clue I had was right off the bat, we were told absolutely no photos, no stopping for photos going down the mountain. Either you get there and stay off the road, or you just cycle with the riders because they're going that fast and they might hit you.
70 miles an hour in some places.
Yeah, wow. It was phenomenal. So lots of people rode their bikes up to the pass and are just watching this epic.
Are they at the top, or are they just coming over? They're just
almost at the top. They just have a little bit more before they crest and they start going down.
Right down. I've ridden out there. It's fantastic, and yeah, you can get going very quickly. I love the way you climbed up to the top here and were able to capture the height, the sense of just how high up you are. I mean, I can't remember how many feet it is. It's a couple thousand, or I don't know.
Yeah, at least.
At least.
It's an incredible scene, and I always my father-in-law was a photographer, but he did more like nature and scenic photography, and I always appreciated, but I could never do it.
It's hard.
I was never drawn to it. Yeah. But my husband teases me because a lot of my photos, especially at the stage races, are about setting the picture in a scene. So you just get an idea of where in the world these guys
Travis doesn't know what he's talking about. Don't worry. It's a beautiful picture. No, you're right. It establishes the fact that you are at the top of a very long climb in California, and that comes through in a lot of your images. This one is one of my favorites too. I love the champagne.
The champagne filter
on the lens, right? Very carefully.
I was new to the scene. I had the right badge to ride the moto and to get into that photographer's corral, so I could shoot for Pez and everything, but still, even then, I'd usually be like third row back just because I am so new, and all the big photographers would be up front with all their gear.
Sounds like the White House here. There's sort of a hierarchy.
Oh, there very much is. But I tell you what, Wiggins popped open or was getting ready to pop open that champagne bottle, and they scrammed out of there because these guys are carrying probably tens of thousands of dollars worth of gear on their bodies, and they don't want a drop of champagne. But I had my 7D, which is not an expensive camera in the scheme of things, and my backup camera was a little Rebel T, which, it's a great starter camera. I remember a photographer who shot for Peloton and Getty Images eyeballing what I was carrying, and they were looking at me like, what are you shooting with?
Oh, gosh, that sounds familiar.
But seriously, the bottle popped open, and all of a sudden I had front and center, and I welcomed the champagne if it meant I got the shot.
Yeah, I know, and you got a great shot, and those other guys, they lost the opportunity. But for the record, are you a Nikon or a Canon?
I'm a Canon.
Okay,
Canon.
Yeah, so am I.
I think they're easier to use.
Could be. But digression.
Yes.
So here we go. Is that Jens Voigt?
Yeah, it's so it's his last year racing at the Pro Challenge, and that's a TV moto. But I love this photo. And again, like most photos for photographers and people just who take pictures, you usually like a photo because it means something to you. It resembles a time, a space, whatever it may be. So, but something personal.
Yeah.
And I love that photo because the only way you could take it was on the back of a moto.
Yes.
And it was an amazing stage. Jens grabbed a much younger rider and made him work with him through the last stage in Denver.
That's
and was just, we could hear him yelling at this kid to pull through and to help out with the work, and we could see the elbow flicking, and and it was just them two for a few laps. It was
and so that the kid, I'm sure he sort of hustled and got right.
He hustled.
Did exactly what he was told. I should hope.
He hustled and he popped off the back a little bit, and then and some other riders bridged up to him, but just.
Well, you were right there,
yep.
right in the center, and you can see the peloton sort of in the distance, sort of looming.
Yeah.
Wow, wonderful.
That's from my first year at Gloucester cyclocross.
Sure.
So all the dust and again, just another scene with the beer tent, the crowds. I'd never seen a handoff. I've never seen money thrown at riders. I've never seen a rider pick up the beer in turn. I've never seen kids so excited about a race and the bells, and it's a great event.
It is a totally different thing. I love the way you've got these two kids in the red and the light yellow shirt, which is sort of pale, along with the dust.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, who's that?
I don't remember his name. That's at the Pro Challenge in Colorado, and they were just entering the Garden of the Gods.
Oh yeah.
Which is just an incredible park of rock formations, and it's protected. And so the group, the whole race, the whole stage just kind of fishes through this national park.
Surreal setting.
Yeah. But I had just bought an art lens that had a different depth of field. So that way, whatever's immediately in front of the lens is going to be in focus, and everything behind it immediately starts to blur, just to give it another artistic layer.
Right, that's what depth of field is all about, right?
Yes. Okay. And you can, with any lens and any camera, you can set up the camera to do that to a certain extent. How much you want to accentuate that feature, then you might have to look at different gear. But it's the first time I had this lens, and I bought the lens because it forced me to get close to riders.
I see.
I'm always a little shy when it comes to going directly up to people, especially racers, and getting their portraits or some shot. I like my telescope lens be farther away.
You got to be the human telephoto, right?
Yeah. So I tried out that lens for the first time ever at that stage because they were coming up a long hill. I could run up beside them and started practicing.
So you were on your feet here.
Yes.
Yeah.
In fact, on my computer, like a few photos right before, I have Travis barefoot running alongside Jens, yelling at him to get up to the top of the hill.
In his sort of his devil outfit with a fork and a red cape.
If we had one, he would have worn it. I guarantee it. But no.
Or what is the other one? The mono suit that. Probably.
There's some kind of monkey gorilla hairy thing in pink that runs around all over the place.
Well, he's still got time. All right.
That's downtown Silver City at the Tour of the Gila, and this is a women's crit race. And I was just playing around with different styles of photography. I wanted to take a picture of the building, a historic building, but at the same time get an idea of speed and motion. So
how do you create that effect where something is clear in one part of the image but blurred in the other part? Is that a shutter setting, or
it is a shutter setting? So every camera you have focal points, and on this camera I think I had 9 or 10 focal points. So I singled it down to 1 and aimed at the building.
Okay.
So that way, and then change the shutter speed so that anything that moved would have drag. to it. So I just kept my focal point on the building and let everything just zip right by, and the shutter speed was so slow that it just blurred the riders.
The shutter speed is 125, 250, 500, those are...
It can be 1,000. I mean, if you want everything to stay in place, then you probably have 1,000.
Right.
Went over 1,000. So, but I didn't. So I don't remember what my shutter speed, but it could have very easily been like 1/50.
Right. I see. But that's the general.
Yeah. And that's the fun part of photography. You know, even if you're not a photographer and you didn't go to photography school or you haven't really done much with it, but you're interested, you know, just for one thing, read the manual of your camera. It sounds like such a geeky thing to say, but it really makes a difference to know what your camera's capable of doing. And the camera actually, as you read about each feature, it actually prompts ideas on what you can do with it. So if you don't like what 1/1000th looks like, then drop it down to 1/100th and see what that does to your photo.
And the instruction manuals are a lot better than they used to be. And I mean, you still have to download them online, but they frequently show you what the image is going to look like.
Yeah, they give examples. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And there's so much online. Like the first time I wanted to learn how to pan, so an object is in motion. But they're in focus, and then everything behind them has that blurred drag.
Right.
I remember going to a race where, like, I don't know, 15 minutes to the parking area, and I'm on my phone Googling how to do panning and what the settings would be for a Canon, and that's what you do. You look up stuff, you explore, you play with it, and you fine tune it.
Yeah, but it's so 21st century photography, because but 20, 30 years ago, every shot was 10 minutes in the darkroom, right? And you know, print, paper, chemicals, and now you make a shot, and if it doesn't work, you delete it and try again. So
and cameras now have Wi-Fi, and it connects right to your phone.
I know, I got to learn all that. Wow.
But even my gear is a little behind the times. Well, I should say quite a bit behind the times, but it just evolves so fast, all the gear. But again, whatever you have.
But it's still the eye of the photographer that will allow you to capture an image like this. So, I mean, you can have great gear and not create many captivating images. But this one, I like the angle. I like the way everything is on one angle, but the rider is at the opposite angle.
So so that is turn 4 at the crit at the Tour of the Gila, and it's funny, they start running categories at 7 a.m. and then the last category takes off around 5. So the sun is just constantly changing position through this downtown area. Out west in New Mexico, for half the day, though, the sun is right over you. So it creates these amazing shadows, which you may or may not like, depending on what you're trying to shoot. If you're trying to get a face shot, it's really tough, because now all of a sudden, all you see is a dark face. Yeah. But if you want a photograph of the cyclist's body at an angle in motion, then earlier part of the day is good, to almost to midday. Yeah. And that was one of the earlier crits. And I shot it with a Canon Rebel, a very simple camera. I had a used lens that went up to 200 millimeters. You really need if you're going to do cycling photography, you really need a lens that will go up to at least 200 millimeters. And you really don't need anything that goes more than that, unless you're going to be really far away. But you can shoot just about anything with a telescope lens that will go to 200. Right. And I was on a corner, and that light was just shooting on them perfectly. I actually, my cameras are always set, although I shoot in RAW, my cameras are always set in monochrome, in black and white, so that way as I take a shot, I can see what it looks, I can preview it in black and white, and I can tweak my settings or my position or wait till a later time in the day to get what I want. And then when I upload it to my computer, because it's in RAW, it'll revert it back to just the natural colors, and then I can go in and edit and tweak it how I envisioned it. Right, that's interesting. Right, so in a way you're creating a negative, even though it's a positive. Exactly. Well, that really worked out. Thank you. Another Tour of the Gila shot. Crit day was my favorite. You could just walk around. You didn't have to be on a motor or in a car to be able to see the race, and it's so spectator friendly. But this was just a perfect example. A house bunch of friends get together. There's race derby, like horse derby photos, as if they're at the races. It was a themed party.
Yeah, and she's wearing a hat, the great big flower hat.
Yeah, but every year,
yeah,
every year, this house was famous for having some sort of themed party for the racers, and you always had to get a shot of that house.
There it is. And I like this one. This is on my my favorites list. It looks like sometimes you look around for an artistic shot or something besides guys on bikes.
Yeah.
Am I right?
Yeah. No. Absolutely. And for a long time, until I started working with magazines and websites, I really just went to shoot what I enjoyed in my art. And so I never took podium shots. I never took finish line shots. I had zero interest in those.
Yeah, right.
And I just looked for the scene that was happening around a race. Racers getting ready, they're racing in front of someone's yard. There's, a trike there. Is that trike, is that kid gonna maybe be a racer someday? It's just, I'm looking for more of a feeling in a photograph, that story that's in a photograph versus, forcing someone to understand what it is. I like that there's an element of, you can look at that and kind of just think about a lot of different things.
Absolutely, yeah. So the difference between a commercial image and something that's a little bit more open-ended. So at Frame and Wheel, we get that all the time, picture of bike. But then there's the picture, the angle of the head tube and the bottom bracket off in the distance looks totally different and catches the eye and warms the soul.
Yeah.
Here we go.
I love tattoos. I have tattoos and I could not help myself. I can't help myself. If I see tattoos at a bike race, I'm always going to photograph it. But this guy he looked good in black and white.
Wonderful.
So he's actually that same racer that we saw earlier. But he just had a great sleeve, and
look at that.
I have a tattoo photo collection, and he jumped right into it.
Really? Yeah, look at that. He's got it's a dove or two doves.
Yeah. And I mean, if you are into tattoos, I mean, those are soft lines. I mean, I'm curious if the artist even put a stencil on first and then tattooed it, or if he did it freehand. It always fascinates me. But there are no hard lines, and that in itself, to tattoo with almost like a watercolor kind of effect, is quite a talent. So
I'll say, yeah.
It's the blending of two interests.
It shows a little bit about the individuals who are turning up at these races. I mean,
I mean, I just took a picture of my. I finally found someone who had a Sailor Jerry's style pirate ship on his forearm. I mean, and you'd only see that in New England or on a coast.
Yeah, right.
Usually out in New Mexico, it's a lot of skulls and birds, and it just has a different style out there. And so out here in New England, I'm getting a whole different.
Yeah, no, that's great.
Look.
That's good. No, that's Jens Voigt, right?
Yeah. So that is the time trial day, and we are outside of Vail, Colorado, and it was quite the course for this time trial. And I was really bummed. I'd been bugging the moto director for the entire week about getting on a moto, and kept telling him, I work for Pez, I'll do it justice, and just let me on a moto. And this would have been an opportunity. It ended up not working out, but it ended up being perfect. Travis came to the rescue. I was carrying a gear backpack, and it had all my extra lenses in it and everything. And I ended up strapping it to myself, and it had a handle on the back. So to get that shot, you had to get down in the road, and if not, crouch to the ground. And I have a 7200 lens to get that shot, and I would wait till the very last second that I could absolutely be on the road without getting run over by him. And Travis would grab the strap from the backpack and yank me out of the road just in time. And it was great. I got so many awesome shots. Had I not had someone like a human cherry picker, there's no way I could have photographed that stage the way I did.
And so you're leaning out beyond the barrier, I guess. And you're.
Yeah, there actually wasn't a barrier. So like what you see, the crowds. Like in any European race, you kind of see the crowds kind of squished into the road, and as the riders come through, the seas part kind of thing. And so it was very much that scene. They had, officials yelling at, everyone to get out of the way. But we had been hanging out with the same crowd for like 3 days now. They were actually helping out Travis and I to get some of the shots by clearing themselves out of the way, or
wonderful.
giving us a heads up, or the officials were helping, making sure there was some crowd control. And yep, I just had Travis pulling me out of the way to keep from getting run over so that I could get that shot.
Nice one, Travis. Right on.
Yeah.
There we go. Your podium shot.
A podium shot. And actually, it's not. I mean, yes, they're in there, but I'm really shooting the photographers.
Yeah.
The
competition. Yeah.
Well, I didn't view it. I mean, I was so new. I just thought the whole thing was so fascinating. The scurry to get to the tape, the barrier to get those shots, to get in prime position to photograph, and just the scene around a podium. Especially a pro podium.
Yeah, and because these guys are shooting images for all the magazines as well, so they have to.
I mean, there's Casey Gibson, and you can't see, but Jonathan Devich is right over here. Casey shoots for Velo, and Devich shoots for Road Magazine.
Yeah, okay,
yep.
Wow, yeah.
And they do lots of other things, but those are, they're big publications, and those were two individuals I just was in awe of their photos over the years. So to actually be standing next to them.
Yeah, no, but they're probably pretty nervous right now.
I don't think so.
I don't know. Here we go.
So this is at Pro Challenge. I don't remember the town we were in, but
who is this? I was trying to see who that was. I couldn't figure it out. Travis
has told me so many times, this is his last year racing, and I can't remember. I'm blanking on it right now.
Yeah.
If I could call Travis, he'd tell me. But he's
He's
famous
very
racer.
Yeah, and he's signing a jersey for this kid here.
Yep, he rode for Saxo, and this kid is in line waiting for his signature. But I just loved it because he's getting interviewed. She's got the recorder. He's wearing these glasses. He looks like he's gonna be like ready to document some famous pre-race words.
Oh, yeah, that's right. For a 6th grade class, right?
Yeah, but it was interesting. Like a tour of California. Everything was really professional. I mean, when you walked up to a pre-race scene, the riders were really focused, and vendors are out and fans are walking around and everything, but you really didn't see kids.
Oh, yeah.
The Pro Challenge, it was more of a family-oriented scene. It was really interesting. There were kids everywhere. Kids with cameras, their hats, their notepads, signatures, wanting to meet the riders. Just the communities really came out and supported the racers, where in California, sometimes you'd see a business with the sign on the front like no potties for racers, or stuff like that. It was a different thing, level of acceptance of the event.
It might be the scale too. I mean, the Tour of California is big.
Yeah, the money that goes into shutting down 3 intersections in one town was just phenomenal. So
downtown LA.
But yeah, in Colorado, it was just a more low-key scene, and I just love that, here's the next generation of kids.
That's right.
Who are watching, their heroes on bikes, and are probably going to be on a bike in the next few years at some race that we'll take pictures at.
That's right. That's great. The future of cycling, and we got to get the kids out there and get them involved, and that's fantastic. I think you've covered all of my favorites very effectively. I mean, they're all my favorite, and it's very good that you're doing it. And what are the plans for around New England for your image creation?
I don't know yet. I mean, I have some sources I'd like to partner up with again and work on getting assignments and start submitting photos again. The last couple of years, Travis and I have just been getting settled in the New England area.
That's right.
We've done a lot of the cross scene, and right now I really just like photographing the races and seeing the culture, and I'll throw the photos on Facebook so that the racers can enjoy them. I absolutely love watching the dialogue that photos can bring to a community, and it sets the whole race occurs again the day after. My phone explodes sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, do you have a sense of how many people are looking or downloading or?
I don't. I mean, I get hundreds of alerts, but that doesn't really tell you how many people are looking necessarily. But even if just a few conversations spark from it, or some different relationships are made as a result of it. And once in a while, quite often someone will contact me and ask to buy a digital image, and that's great. Definitely helps justify to another level what I'm doing. But I like how images can promote a sense of that community.
Yeah, no, you're doing a great job, and I promise you, there's been no one in New England who, at least as far as I can remember, since I've been going to these races, who's consistently putting up so many great images, and I mean, you're getting the attention of all the racers, and I think you're doing the right thing. Just keep putting them up there, and sooner or later the publications will, if they haven't come already, they will come to you hat in hand and say.
Well, like I said, it's so competitive, so you really have to.
But you have to
put yourself out there.
But you have to turn up. I mean, it's competitive.
True.
But if you turn up and you get to the corner and you get on a moto and you're there for that shot, and the other guy is not there because he doesn't know about it or he doesn't know where to stand.
Sure.
Then there it is.
Yeah.
Well, Angelica, this is fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing sharing all these great images with us. And as I say, you make us all look great, and it's great to know that you're doing it. And thanks so much.
Thank you.
All right, everybody. That was Angelica Dixon, a cycling photographer, and you can see many of her images on her Facebook page, Angelica Dixon, and you can contact her directly to find out more about where to see her inventory of images, all through her Facebook page. That's all we got time for right now. Thanks so much for watching, and we will see you again soon.
All Things Bike with Fred Thomas is brought to you by Zentis, performance carbon wheels handmade in Austria for road and off-road riding. Zentis, next generation wheels. And Frame and Wheel eBay bike selling services. Time, space, cash. Pick 3. And AD Bikes, the modern face of Austro-Daimler cycling and the bike company of the future.